Good afternoon. This is All India Radio. I am Valsa Williams and with me is Saira Mujtaba with the Midday News. The headlines. Peaceful polling underway for first phase of assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh in 58 constituencies. About 35.03% polling has been recorded till 1 p.m. Prime Minister and senior BJP leader Narendra Modi addresses a public meeting at Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh and holds virtual meeting at Uttarakhand to also address a public meeting in North Goa at 5 p.m. Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi Vadra campaigns in Rampur district in UP. Filing of nominations begins for the 7th and last phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh. RBI announces bi-monthly policy, maintains status quo in policy rates. Institutional employment in the country increases by 22% over the past 7 years. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar heads for Australia to attend meeting of foreign ministers of the Quad tomorrow at Melbourne. Revised guidelines for international arrivals issued to come into effect from 14th February. Over 171 crore 28 lakh doses of COVID vaccine administered so far. Recovery rate improves to 96.95%. And in cricket, final ODI between India and West Indies to be played tomorrow at Ahmedabad. With the new Omicron variant of coronavirus causing concern, we appeal to our listeners to be vigilant and to get fully vaccinated and help others, including children between 15 and 18 years, to get vaccinated. Please continue to follow these 3 simple steps to stay safe. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. In the first phase of assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh, 35.03% voter turnout was registered till 1 p.m. We now go over live to our correspondent for more information. Divakar, what update do you have on the polling?
Well, Valsa, I'm in front of DPS Indrapuram polling booth and a large number of people of all age group are in the queue to cast their votes. Voting is in progress smoothly here. Other parts of western UP like Noida and Dadri assembly seats are also witnessing good turnout. Elaborate security arrangements have been made to ensure free and fair polls. Dedicated booths for hand sanitization and temperature check have been set up at polling booths in view of COVID-19 pandemic. Valsa.
Right, Divakar, tell us about the prominent candidates in this phase of polling.
Valsa, there are 5 assembly seats in Ghaziabad district. UP Minister Atul Garg, Vishal Verma of Samajwadi Party and Krishna Kumar Shukla of BSP are fighting on Ghaziabad assembly seat. BJP leaders and UP ministers Suresh Rana and Shrikant Sharma, BJP MLAs Pankaj Singh and Sangeet Som from Samajwadi Party, Sunil Chaudhary and Nahid Hassan and Pankhuri Pathak of Congress are prominent candidates in this phase. Valsa.
Right, thank you, Divakar, for those details. The polling, which began at 7 a.m., is progressing smoothly and will be conducted till 7 p.m. in 58 assembly constituencies spread over 11 districts. The districts where polling is being held today are Shamli, Meerut, Hapur, Muzaffarnagar, Bagpat, Ghaziabad, Bulandshahr, Aligarh, Agra, Gautam Budh Nagar and Mathura. A total of 623 candidates, including 73 women, are in the fray in the first phase. A high-pitched electoral campaign is going on in full swing for the second phase polling in Uttar Pradesh and single-phase polls in Goa and Uttarakhand. Star campaigners and prominent leaders of various political parties engaged in public rallies after finalization of the candidates. Door-to-door canvassing and virtual appeals to the voters also continue. Political activities are picking up momentum in other poll-bound states as well, including Punjab and Manipur, with the party leaders deliberating in marathon meetings to finalize their electoral strategies and formations. The process of filing nominations for the 7th and last phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh has begun with the issuance of notification today. The state is going to polls in 7 phases till the 7th of March, and the counting of votes will be taken up together on the 10th of March. The 7th phase of polling in Uttar Pradesh will be conducted on the 7th of next month in 54 assembly constituencies from 9 districts. Nominations for this phase can be filed till the 17th and scrutiny will be undertaken on the 18th of February. The last date for withdrawal of candidature will be the 21st of February. During the single-phase polling in Punjab, total 1,304 candidates are in the fray for 117 seats after the withdrawal of candidature. Maximum 19 candidates each are vying for Sahnewal and Patiala seats, while minimum 5 candidates are in the fray for Deennagar seat. During the UP 5th phase, along with the first of the 2-phase polling in Manipur, scrutiny of nominations was completed yesterday. In all, 718 nominations were found valid in Uttar Pradesh, while 175 nominations were found valid in Manipur for this phase. The candidature can be withdrawn till tomorrow.
While polling is underway for the first phase of elections in Uttar Pradesh, campaigning has intensified for the other phases of elections in the state. Senior BJP leader and Prime Minister Narendra Modi today addressed a political rally in Saharanpur district of Uttar Pradesh, where elections will be held for the second phase. Addressing the gathering, the Prime Minister said that Uttar Pradesh needs development and that is why the double-engine government is necessary for the state. Attacking the opposition, the Prime Minister said that earlier governments only worked for the development of their family, but the Yogi government is working for the benefit of each and every person of the society. The Prime Minister said that some people are jealous with the growing support for BJP among Muslim women, and that is why they are trying to create unnecessary issues. He said that the Yogi government has implemented schemes like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana on a large scale and also worked for the local woodwork industry of Saharanpur. Other senior BJP leaders are also campaigning in the state. BJP President JP Nadu will campaign in Sitapur district today. Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi Vadra is also campaigning for party candidates in Rampur district. The Prime Minister also addresses a public meeting this afternoon at Srinagar in Uttarakhand. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address an election meeting at Mapsa in North Goa this evening at 5 p.m. Meanwhile, campaigning is reaching its peak in different parts of Goa as leaders of various political parties including the BJP, Congress, Aam Aadmi Party and TMC are making all-out efforts to woo the voters. Polling in Goa will be held in a single phase in 40 constituencies on the 14th of this month. While addressing election meetings, senior BJP leader and Union Home Minister Amit Shah exhorted people to vote in favour of party candidates to make a golden Goa. Mr. Shah said mining work will be started within 6 months if the BJP is voted to power.
The Reserve Bank of India today maintained status quo in policy rates as the Monetary Policy Committee MPC voted unanimously to keep the policy repo rate at 4% to keep the stance accommodative. While announcing the bi-monthly policy, RBI Governor Shaktikant Das said MSF rate and bank rate will remain unchanged at 4.25%. Reverse repo rate will also remain unchanged at 3.35%. Shaktikant Das said MPC has voted 5-1 to continue accommodative monetary policy stance as long as necessary to revive and sustain growth and mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on the economy, while ensuring inflation remains within target. Speaking about the GDP growth, RBI Governor said notwithstanding a highly transmissible third wave driven by the Omicron variant of COVID-19, India is charting a different course of recovery from the rest of the world. It is poised to grow fastest among the major economies as per projections made by the IMF. This recovery is supported by large-scale vaccination and sustained fiscal and monetary support. He said the focus is on securing the economic and financial conditions of the vulnerable, the wage earners and all those who suffer the most. Accordingly, the emphasis is shifting to targeted containment strategies and a push towards universal vaccination and booster doses. Speaking about the inflation, RBI Governor said the increase in inflation in December was entirely due to unfavorable base effects despite month-on-month decline in prices. Labour and Employment Minister Bhupendra Yadav has said the institutional employment in the country has increased by 22% within the span of 7 years. While replying to supplementaries in the Rajya Sabha today, the minister said The second round of quarterly employment survey for the period July to September 2021 indicated that 2 lakh institutional employment has been generated in the country despite the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. He said periodic labour force survey also indicated that unemployment rate has decreased in the country during the financial year 2019-20, while labour force participation rate has gone up. He said with the revival of the economy, all 3 labour market indicators, namely worker population ratio, labour force participation rate and unemployment rate, has shown a swift recovery.
Opposition members today protested in the Rajya Sabha over Prime Minister Narendra Modi's reply over the motion of thanks to the President's address with regard to Andhra Pradesh Reorganisation Act. When the House met this morning, opposition members including the Congress, TRS, TMC and others accused the government of not fulfilling the promises made in the Act. Afterwards, TRS members trooped into the well. Deputy Chairman Harivansh said, notice of privilege moved by the TRS is under consideration. The Health Ministry has issued revised guidelines for international arrivals. These guidelines would come into effect from the 14th of this month. Besides uploading negative RT-PCR report, option to upload certificate of completing full primary vaccination schedule of COVID-19 vaccination has been provided to countries on a reciprocal basis. The guidelines provide that 2% of the total passengers in the flight shall undergo random post-arrival testing at the airport. Such travellers in each flight shall be identified by the concerned airlines. The travellers will submit samples and shall be allowed to leave the airport. Highlighting the main features of the guidelines, Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia said that these guidelines mandate 14 days self-monitoring post-arrival as against 7 days of home quarantine as was mandated earlier. He said that the demarcation of countries at risk and other countries has been removed.
Over 171 crore 28 lakh doses of COVID vaccine have been administered so far under the nationwide vaccination drive. The Health Ministry said 46,44,000 doses were administered yesterday. The recovery rate is currently at 96.95%. Over 1,67,000 recoveries were reported in the last 24 hours. Over 67,000 new cases were recorded in the same period. 1,241 deaths were also reported. In our bilingual live phone-in program Corona Jagrukta series, Dr. Piyush Ranjan of All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, will be with us today to answer the queries related to coronavirus. Listeners can ask questions to the expert from 9:30 p.m. on telephone number 011-2342-1230 and 011-2342-1764. You can also post your queries on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts by hashtag AskAIR. This live program can be heard on FM Gold channel and additional frequencies. This program will also be available on our website newsonair.nic.in and on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official.
You are listening to the Midday News on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Peaceful polling underway for first phase of assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh in 58 constituencies. About 35.03% polling has been recorded till 1 p.m. Prime Minister and senior BJP leader Narendra Modi addresses a public meeting at Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh and holds a virtual meeting at Uttarakhand to also address a public meeting in North Goa at 5 p.m. Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi Vadra campaigns in Rampur district in UP. Filing of nominations begins for the 7th and last phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh. RBI announces bi-monthly policy, maintains status quo in policy rates. Institutional employment in the country increases by 22% over the past 7 years. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar heads for Australia to attend meeting of foreign ministers of the Quad tomorrow at Melbourne. Revised guidelines for international arrivals issued to come into effect from 14th of February. Over 171 crore 28 lakh doses of COVID vaccine administered so far. Recovery rate improves to 96.95%. And in cricket, final ODI between India and West Indies to be played tomorrow at Ahmedabad. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts. चलो मिलकर एक शुरुआत करें, चलो एक फैसला आज करें, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे, चलो इस
Welcome back to the Midday News. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will participate in the 4th Quad Foreign Ministers meeting tomorrow in Melbourne in Australia, along with the Foreign Ministers of Australia, Japan and the United States. It will be an opportunity for the ministers to follow up on their virtual meeting held in February last year and exchange views on regional strategic issues given their shared vision of a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. The ministers will review ongoing Quad cooperation and build on the positive and constructive agenda announced by the leaders at the 2 summits last year to address contemporary challenges such as the COVID pandemic, supply chains, critical technologies, climate change and infrastructure. Earlier yesterday, Dr. S. Jaishankar met his Qatari counterpart, Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Rasim Al Thani, and exchanged views on global and regional developments, including Afghanistan. The two leaders also discussed political, economic, digital and security partnerships. Dr. Jaishankar tweeted that he held productive talks with Foreign Minister of Qatar, appreciating the interest in expanding investment and trade. He said they discussed our broad-based political, economic, digital and security partnership and thanked Qatari authorities for the support extended to the Indian community. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh today highlighted the important role played by cantonment areas in the socio-economic and cultural development of the country, giving away awards to the personnel of defence estates in New Delhi for their contribution in the successful completion of survey of 17.78 lakh acres of defence land using modern technologies. Mr. Singh lauded Directorate General Defence Estates for using drone imagery, satellite imagery and 3D modelling techniques in such a survey for the first time. Congratulating the award winners, Mr. Singh commended the Defence Estates personnel for completing the exercise in adverse weather conditions at uninhabited remote places amidst the threat of COVID-19 pandemic.
The Delhi government has instructed all its departments, autonomous and local bodies to identify suitable locations and install public electric vehicle charging stations at their premises. A subsidy of 6,000 rupees per charging point is admissible for empanelled vendors. Transport Minister Kailash Gehlot said government employees will be able to charge their electric vehicles or EVs during work hours. Mr. Gehlot said, in Delhi, electric vehicle charging stations are being built speedily and these stations will now be installed in all government offices. The minister said the general public, in addition to government employees, will also be able to charge their vehicles there. Kerala government rolls out a 100-day action plan from today, ahead of the first anniversary of CPIM-led Pinarayi Vijayan government in May. In all, 1,557 projects worth 17,183.9 crore will be implemented with a major thrust on creation of job opportunities. According to an official release, a total of 7,73,669 man-days are targeted in different sectors.
In Tamil Nadu, 9 fishermen released by the Sri Lankan Navy after 59 days in prison reached Chennai today. The fishermen belonging to Puducherry, Nagapattinam and Rameshwaram were arrested for trespassing Sri Lankan waters last December. They were part of the group of 54 fishermen who were released earlier. These fishermen had tested positive for COVID-19 and hence there was a delay in their release. India has agreed to provide a grant to Sri Lanka to implement a unitary digital identity framework apparently modelled on the Aadhaar card. The government of Sri Lanka has decided to speed up the implementation of a unitary digital identity framework in the country. The Personal Identity Verification Program, a digital tool that can represent the identities of individuals in cyberspace and the identification of individual identities that can be accurately verified in digital and physical environments by combining the two devices. The Government of India had previously agreed to provide a grant to implement the unitary digital identity framework after bilateral talks between the Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2019.
And now let's listen to our special program Azadi Ka Safar, highlighting the importance of the day during the freedom struggle.
Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News, Birth of a Nation.
India's glorious freedom struggle is one of the greatest struggles the modern world has ever witnessed. AIR News brings you a glimpse of the struggle every day.
On 10th February 1846, the Battle of Sobraon was fought between the British forces and the Sikh army.
The First Anglo-Sikh War had commenced in 1845 when the Sikh army crossed the river Sutlej and attacked British positions. This war consisted of a series of battles. The Battle of Sobraon was the last of them. The British victory in these battles was hard-fought as the Sikh army was powerful and had excellent infantry units which had been trained under the leadership of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. At the Battle of Sobraon, the Sikhs lost about 10,000 men. The British suffered only about 230 casualties. It was a decisive victory for the British.
After the war, the Treaty of Lahore was signed on 9th March 1846 between the Governor-General Henry Harding and Maharaja Dilip Singh, the 7-year-old king of the Sikh Empire. This treaty reduced Sikh territorial possessions a great deal and also handed independence to the Raja of Jammu, Gulab Singh, who acquired Jammu by paying a sum to the East India Company. It was also agreed that a British resident was to be appointed at the Lahore Darbar.
सुख का दाता सबका साथी, सुख का ये संदेश है, माँ की गोद पिता का आश्रय, मेरा मध्य प्रदेश है.
We remember freedom fighter Raja Bakhas Bali, who was martyred on 10 February 1858. Bali joined hands with the rebels rallying against the British forces in Indore and Dhar areas during the First War of Indian Independence in 1857. His troops captured the fortress of Dhar in the second week of October 1857 from British occupation but could not retain it for long. However, he readied his soldiers at Lalgarh fort of Amjera state and enlisted hundreds of local tribesmen.
Before the confrontation could actually take place at Lalgarh fort, Bali was persuaded to go out of the fort for taking part in negotiations started by his chief minister, Gulab Rao. However, Bali was captured and sentenced to death. We salute the great martyr.
We also remember freedom fighter Babu Singh, who was martyred on 10 February 1945. A soldier in the British Indian Army during the Second World War, Babu Singh joined the Indian National Army in 1942. He took part in battles against the Allied forces in Burma and died in action on 10 February 1945 in Burma. We salute the great martyr.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. See you in the next episode tomorrow.
आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव के पावन अवसर पर आकाशवाणी समाचार के कार्यक्रम परिक्रमा में बृहस्पतिवार को शाम 4:45 पर सुनिए देश की आजादी में अपना अमूल्य योगदान देने वाले भारतीय स्वतंत्रता संग्राम के सेनानियों की वीर गाथा।
Best wishes to all consumers for Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Hallmark ensures purity of gold. Always purchase hallmarked gold jewelry. For any consumer-related complaints, please contact National Consumer Helpline toll-free number 14404. Issued in public interest by Department of Consumer Affairs, Government of India, Jago Grahak Jago.
The nation is remembering revolutionary Bengali poet and writer Nobin Chandra Sen on his 175th birth anniversary today. He described the Battle of Plassey and the arrival of British rule in India as a night of eternal gloom. Nobin Chandra Sen's novel in verse Bhanumati and memoir of his travels Probashir Potro brought him fame. His 5-volume autobiography Amar Jibon, My Life, is an important document chronicling the politics and social aspirations of the Bengali literati in the late 19th century. The Indian Army commenced implementing radio frequency identification RFID tagging of its ammunition inventory. The first consignment of RFID tagged ammunition, comprising 3 lots of 5.56 mm ammunition, was dispatched from Ammunition Factory Khadki to Central Ammunition Depot, Pulgaon. The Director General Ordnance Services flagged off the event. The Ministry of Defence said in a statement yesterday that the implementation of the RFID solution for ammunition asset visibility will transform the management of ammunition and bring in a quantum jump in ammunition lot management and tracking capability.
On to sports now. Indian men's hockey team defeated host South Africa by 10-2 in the second match of the FIH Pro Hockey League at Potchefstroom last night. India will play France in the second match of the 2-leg tie on Saturday. Olympic bronze medalist India had thrashed France 5-0 in their opening match of the FIH Pro Hockey League on Tuesday. In cricket, on this day in the year 1952, India tasted its first test victory, and that too by an inning and 8 runs. Polly Umrigar's 130 not out paved the way for the historic win. He produced an innings of exquisite quality against a strong English attack. India were trailing 0-1 going into the 5th and final test at Chennai, then known as Madras. The side had originally contained Adhikari, but when he suffered from a sprained wrist, Polly Umrigar was retained despite his indifferent form in the series. It was a historic moment. It had taken India 20 years and 25 tests to register their first victory, and the 11 players realized they had pulled off something special. However, Indians celebrated themselves by merely patting each other on the backs. The spectators, though, went berserk and gave the Indians a standing ovation. The scores were England 266 and 183 and India 457 for 9 declared. India won by an innings and 8 runs.
Now let us take a look at the weather forecast for today. The national capital Delhi will have a mainly clear sky. Temperature will vary between 9 and 22 degrees Celsius. Mumbai will have a mainly clear sky. The minimum temperature was 17 degrees, while the maximum is expected to be around 29. Chennai is likely to have a partly cloudy sky. Temperature will vary between 22 and 31 degrees Celsius. Puducherry will have a generally cloudy sky with light rain. Minimum temperature was 21 degrees, while maximum is expected to be around 32. Kolkata will have a mainly clear sky. The city observed minimum temperature of 17 degrees Celsius and a maximum of around 27 degrees. Srinagar will have a partly cloudy sky. Temperature will hover between 0 and 13 degrees Celsius. Jammu will have a mainly clear sky. Minimum temperature was 7 degrees, while maximum will be around 21 degrees. And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Peaceful polling underway for first phase of assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh in 58 constituencies. About 35.03% polling has been recorded till 1 p.m. Prime Minister and senior BJP leader Narendra Modi addresses a public meeting at Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh and holds virtual meeting at Uttarakhand to also address a public meeting in North Goa at 5 p.m. Congress General Secretary Priyanka Gandhi Vadra campaigns in Rampur district in UP. Filing of nominations begins for the 7th and last phase of assembly polls in Uttar Pradesh. RBI announces bi-monthly policy, maintains status quo in policy rates. Institutional employment in the country increases by 22% over past 7 years. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar heads for Australia to attend meeting of foreign ministers of Quad tomorrow at Melbourne. Revised guidelines for international arrivals issued to come into effect from 14 February. Over 171 crore 28 lakh doses of COVID vaccine administered so far. Recovery rate improves to 96.95%. And in cricket, final ODI between India and West Indies to be played tomorrow at Ahmedabad. And with that, we end the midday news.